they had categorized, they had broadly categorized into four broad categories industries. First, they had categorized that was industries with exclusive state monopoly. Then they had categorized industries with government control. Then even the industries in mixed economy and industries under the private sector. If we talk about the industries with exclusive state monopoly, it includes industries engaged in the activity of atomic energy, railways, arms and ammunition. If we talk about the industries with government control, there were industries which were of national importance and which are required, which was to be required to be registered. In this, they had specified 18 industries in this category, like fertilizer, heavy chemicals, heavy machineries and thereon. Now, if we talk about the industries in the mixed economy, it includes the industry where public and private sector were allowed to operate. Government was allowed to review the situation to acquire any existing public undertaking. Now, the next is industries under private sector. Actually, industries under private sector were those industries which didn't fall under about three categories that were included in this private sector industries. Now, if we talk about Industrial Development Regulation Act 1951, actually this 1951 Act was a key legislation in the industrial regulatory framework. This 1951 Act had just put a regulatory framework of and had given the power to the government to regulate the industries in number of ways. The main instrument of this act was the regulation of capacity and the powers to control the prices. In this act, it had specified the industries that were subject to licensing also. In this 51 Act, they had mentioned the number of industries which were supposed to be licensed. Even the expansion of industry had required the prior permission of the government, which means that the output capacity was highly regulated. The government had also empowered to control the distribution price of the output produced in the industries listed in the schedule. So till now we are clear that in 1951 Act, it had framed a regulatory framework within which the government had the power to regulate industries in their capacity, the power to control the prices. Even not only this, they had also the power to regulate the licensing and even the capacity of the outputs and even the prices and distribution. All this were mentioned in the 51 Act. So due to all this, now this has related in more or less complete control over by the bureaucracy of industrial development of the country. Now, if we discuss about some of the provisions of this 1951 Act, there were all the existing undertakings at the commencement of the Act, except those owned by the central government, were compulsorily required to register with the designation authorities. No one except the central government were permitted to set up a new industrial undertaking under and in accordance with a license issued by the central government. Till we are seeing that the central government was the higher authority which had regulated the prices, output, even the licensing, all about the industrial organizations. Now, if we talk about the Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, basically the 1956 Act was enacted to specify, to see the classification of the industries, and they had also had a focus on small scale industries, and even they had tried to remove the regional disparities also. Now, in this 1956 Act, the new classification of industries were there. They had again scheduled the industries in basically three categories. That was Schedule A industries, Schedule B industries, and Schedule C industries. Now, the Schedule A industries were the industries that were monopoly in nature, monopoly of state government was there, and it included it included the 17 industries, and even the private sector was allowed to operate in this industries if national interest was required. Now, if we see about the Schedule B industries were industries or the state which was allowed to establish new units, but the private sector was not denied to set up or expand existing units. For example, chemical industries, fertilizers, synthetic rubber, aluminum, etc. were included in this Schedule B industries. Now, Schedule C industries were industries which are not mentioned in the above two categories fall in this category, and generally this 56 Act emphasized the mutual existence of public and private sector industries both. Now, we had already seen that this 56 Act had mainly three focus. They had done the classification of industries in three ways, in three categories. Then they had a focus on small scale industries, and other than this they had also tried to remove the regional disparities also. Now, the second is the encouragement to small scale and cottage industries. Actually, in order to strengthen the small scale sector, supportive measures were suggested in the terms of cheap credit, subsidies, reservations, etc. by the government to the small scale industries. Now, if we talk about the emphasis on the reduction of regional disparities, actually fiscal concessions were granted to open the industries in backward regions, and even the public sector undertakings were given the greater role to develop these areas. Now, if we talk about the basic rationale of this 56 Act was to give a primary role for industrial development, as capital was scarce and even the entrepreneurship was not so strong. Now, if we talk about the industrial policy statement 1973, actually 1973 drew a list of they had mentioned the list of industries which generally fall in small and medium enterprises. In this 73 Act, they had basically they had tried to focus on upgrading the small and medium scale industries, even the entrepreneurs also. Now, this 73 Act has drew up a list of industries that were started by large business houses, so that the competitive efforts of small industries were not affected, and even the entry of the component small and medium entrepreneurs were also encouraged in all the industries, and they had also tried to upgrade to permit. They had also tried to increase the industries in rural and backward areas also. Now, if we talk about the industrial policy statement 1976, basically the elements of this policy was the development of small scale industries, restrictive approach towards large business houses, and even they had tried in expanding the role of public sector. Now, if we talk about the 77 Act, for the development of a small scale sector, they had again categorized small scale industries in three basic categories, that were cottage and household industries, which provided self-employment, tiny sector, and even the small scale industries. Actually, the purpose of clarification was to specially design policy measures for each categories. So we had just been clear that in this 77 Act, they had tried to focus, they had tried to categorize the small scale industries in another 3 categories, that were cottage and household industries, for self-employment, tiny sectors, and small scale industries. The purpose of clarification was to specially design policy measures for each category. In this, they had also tried to categorize, they had tried to form policy for each and every tiny sectors, each and every sectors. Now, the next element of this 77 Act was restrictive approach toward the large business houses. Actually, in the 77 Act, the large scale sector was allowed in basic capital goods and even the high technique industries also. The policy had also emphasized the fund from the financial institution available largely for the development of this sector. The large sector should be, they had also tried to focus, and they had also tried to generate internal finances from the organizations, and even the new projects or the expansion of the business organizations was also being laid out. Now, the next element of this 77 Act was expansion role of public sector. Now, for expanding the role of public sector, the strategies were formed, but also a stabilized force was also being maintained for essential suppliers to the customers also. Now, the next is Industrial Policy 1980. If we talk about the Industrial Policy 1980, the Industrial Policy of 1980 had its basic focus on public sector, and even redefining small sectors also, small scale industries also. So, till now we have come to know that in this Industrial Policy 1980, they had emphasized the public sector. They had realized that the public sector is the pillar of economic infrastructure for a reason of greater reliability, for large investments, and they were also required, and the even long gestation period for the project for economic development. Now, if we talk about effective measures of public sectors, they had tried to focus, they had tried to upgrade the public sector undertakings also. Now, the Industrial Policy 1980 had focused attention on the need for promoting the competition in the domestic market. Even they had also tried to focus on the technological upgradation and even modernization. And the policy had laid down the foundation for increasing the competitive export-based industries, and also for encouraging foreign investments in high technology areas. Now, the next we will have that is the review of pre-1991 industrial policy. If we talk about the pre-scenario of before this 1991 policy, they were having some major features that were the protection of Indian industries. Actually, before 1991, through the review, they had come to know that the local industries were given shelter from international competition by introducing partial physical ban on the imports of products, and even high import tariff rates were also there. The protection from import encourage Indian industries to undertake the manufacture of variety of products, and so they were given a ready market for this all these products. The next main important feature was import substitution policy. Actually, the government the government used its import policy for health development of local industries. During the first few years after independence, the country was facing a shortage of foreign exchanges, and so foreign exchanges import substitution policy was also initiated. And this was also a really good mean for increasing the economic growth and economic development of the country. Now, the next main feature of this pre-1991 policy was financial infrastructure. Actually, in order to provide the financial infrastructure necessary for industries, the government had set a number of developmental banks also. They had provided for minimum and large investment. All these provisions were done by the government to increase the economic ratio, to increase the economic transactions over the country. They had tried to promote, and they had tried to form new industry, new banks also. They had also tried to form new foreign exchange units also. Now, if we talk about other features, the other features of this pre-1991 policy was encouragement to small industries also, encouragement to foreign capital, and even the encouragement to foreign exchanges also. Now, if we talk about the encouragement to small industries, government had tried to provide a number of supportive measures for its growth. Actually, the policy measured had tried to address the basic requirement of SSI like credits, marketing, technology, entrepreneurship development, fiscal, financial, and even infrastructural support. Now, the next feature of this pre-1991 policy was that they even had emphasis on public sector too. They had tried to give they had tried to upgrade, they had tried to provide more facilities for the development of these public sector undertakings. They had tried to give. They had also given the focus on power generation, capital goods, heavy machineries, bank, telecoms. All this area were tried to give. The government had tried to give more focus for developing this public sector undertakings.